Tales to Inspire the Crystal Collection. Stories that tickle the funny bone. Is humor inspiring? You bet. Doesn't it lighten your spirits and just plain make you feel good? This book is divided into sections. The first section is all about kids. Kids will be kids until they grow up and have kids of their own. This first story was written by Jamie Sadler, who hails from Manchester, England. He's currently pursuing a master's in screenwriting, and he wrote a darling story from his childhood that starts with a warning that his parents used to give him constantly. Do not climb on the air raid shelter, which happened to be an above-ground, abandoned air raid shelter in their backyard. Well, the title of his story, You Can't Spell Don't Without Do. You know how children can be, don't you? Yup, kids will be kids. He ended up with a pretty nasty injury, but he was able to cover it up, literally and figuratively, for the next 15 years. The next story in our Crystal collection of Kids Will Be Kids is titled Chicken, Dead or Alive. Did you know that a chicken's brain is only about the size of a man's thumb? Well, that's what Maurice Levenbrun learned. Maurice hails from Newton, Massachusetts. But as a child, he had been brought up in country, and his dad owned a general store where his patrons often paid him with produce rather than cash. So one day, a farmer came in, bought his merchandise, and presented his dad with a burlap bag with a live chicken in it. And his dad instructed him to take that chicken, bring it down to the shahid. And the shahid is the person who's trained to slaughter animals for food in a manner prescribed by Jewish law. I can just picture Maury as a small boy swinging that burlap bag over his head, and that poor chicken inside getting dizzier degree by degree. Our next story, Painting a New House, was written by Rod DiGrotolo. Rod is a born and bred Sarasota, Florida guy. We're so fortunate to have him as one of our Tales to Inspire editors and a contributor to most every Tales to Inspire collection. His story for this crystal collection in the Kids Will Be Kids section recalls an early memory when his sister Bonnie and her friend Brenda were enticed by some open cans of paint that the workers had left behind on a Friday afternoon. Did they cause much damage? Well, good thing the contractor had a sense of humor. Rod, today, this might have become a major legal issue, but here it's just plain fun. The next story in our Kids Will Be Kids section comes to us from Jonah Jerry. Well, she starts off and it's just a terrible, awful day. But somehow she manages to soldier through. It starts when she looks out the window and sees an icy snow falling on the ground. Her 2-year-old is running a fever, and she's instructed to travel many miles to the pediatrician's office on those slick, icy roads. She has a couple of adventures and misadventures on the way, and then finally in the pediatrician's office, among brawling babies, rambunctious children, some of whom are being coaxed by their all-too-progressive moms, before she finally gets to see the pediatrician. Mission accomplished. She struggles again with seat belts and outdoor gear, and the last thing she needs to hear from her 6-year-old is the question that she was dreading dealing with. Why did it have to come today? How are babies born anyway? You'll get a good chuckle out of the ending. And I think Joan did too. The Pantomime Hunter by James Osborne. Jim hails from Vernon, Canada. He's a repeat performer. He has won a previous Tales2Inspire award for his wonderful story, Dragonflies and the Great Blue Heron. The Pantomime Hunter is the story of a young boy named Michael, whose English class is given an unusual assignment to create a script from an event that has happened in their own lives that they can perform through pantomime. Now, Michael chooses duck hunting as his topic. But what happens when duty calls during those interminable waits for ducks to fly by? To the uncontrollable laughter of his fellow students and the raised eyebrows of his teachers, Michael pantomimes the event. Tomatoes and Teenagers by Mickey Peluso. Mickey comes from Staten Island, New York, and she's another repeat Tales2Inspire performer, with one story published in the Tales2Inspire Topaz collection. But now I've discovered Mickey's other talent. She has such a talent for these humorous slice-of-life stories, and you're going to read some of her others in other sections of this crystal collection. In this story, Tomatoes and Teenagers, Mickey describes raising teenagers, and who would know better than a gal who has been mother of 5 teenagers all at the same time. She knows how they can challenge a parent's sanity, evoke their worst nightmares, and confront them with mild issues such as household cleanliness, and then some not-so-mild issues as safety behind the wheel. But just like the tiny buds on her tomato plants, teenagers also ripen. Someday, she reminds herself, they will be parents of children who one day will become teenagers as well. This ends the brief introduction to the first 6 stories in the Crystal Collection, Stories That Tickle the Funny Bone. These 6 stories all belong in the chapter, Kids Will Be Kids, until they grow up and have kids of their own. I hope you enjoyed them.